How you doing, everybody? This is Buck. Welcome to Sober on Two Wheels. I got a great interview set up for today with my brother Patches, who's got an amazing story, even better story as far as the MC world's concerned. Before we get into it, though, I just want to remind you guys to please subscribe and like the videos, especially if you hit that bell every time we post a brand new video. You'll get a notification saying that we've posted, so this way you don't miss any of our stuff. We got a bunch of great interviews coming up. Don't want anybody to miss it. And with that being said, let me start off with Patches. Thanks for coming by today, man. I'm excited to have you here. I've been when I started this out, I had my first 3 guys lined up ready to go, and you're on the list just because of your starting of the messengers and stuff like that. So I want to start off with you kind of growing up, the whole running and gunning part, and then we'll get into, how you got into recovery, stuff like that. So if you want to go ahead and just kind of start from the scratch, man, off the top of your head, nothing crazy.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Number 3, egads. I don't know, just thank you, and thank you for what you're doing. Being sober, being in a clean and sober motorcycle club, it's its own thing. And to be doing this is just kind of helped, because there might be people behind us or wanting or have questions about clean and sober motorcycle clubs, and this is good. I'm probably not really the best person to be doing this, but I'm going to enjoy the shit out of it. What it was like I grew up not far from here. We're in Levittown, Pennsylvania. I grew up in Parkwood, northeast Philadelphia, right by Liberty Bell Racetrack, and we kind of grew up in the woods and having fun. You know what I mean? And it all started, playing in the woods, riding our little bicycles in the woods, the keg parties in the woods, the dirt bikes in the woods, keg parties, and it just went on like that. I grew up in a time where it was the thing. It was a different time, and everybody partied, and that was like our communications. If you had reefer, or there was a keg going on. You know what I mean? It was all neighborhoods, all kegs, always going on. There was no cell phones or nothing like that, but we all knew where to go. People would drive by my house and they would toot the horn.
Yeah.
And I would know, just honk, it wasn't a big thing, and you would know. Or somebody would call your house and they let it ring 3 times and hang up. And this way you knew something was going, and it's just the way it was. It was a good time, but that's probably part of my problem. I had so much of a good time doing that, then it was time to get off the bus. I never got off the bus.
Yeah. Like, you're talking about like hanging out Philly, like street corner kid kind of, almost, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Northeast Philadelphia was all corners, corners and woods. And yeah, it was not inner city, but it's city life.
Right. How old were you when you started drinking and stuff like that?
I was 11 years old. Started smoking cigarettes, drinking beer, and smoking pot all at the same time.
Yeah. So you did everything all at once.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's just the way it was. And I tell the story, and I ain't gonna say the guy's name was. I just thought it was. I had smoked pot once. I was 11 years old, and there was an older kid in our He went to college. He went to Temple University, and he was like a hippie. And I'm walking my dog one time, and he's taking a hit on a joint, and he goes, "You want some?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it was like I was in glory. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was a little hippie in the making.
Yeah. And then, as far as when you got older and stuff like that, you started running into problems because of the drinking and doing other stuff?
Yeah, you can't do what we were doing back then without getting in trouble. And it was all somebody else's fault and this and that, you know what I mean? And it just kept on escalating. And it ended up becoming a problem in the house that I grew up in. And, my parents, they dealt with people drinking growing up. They never dealt with people on drugs, on heavy drugs and stuff. Like a kid on PCP, they never seen that.
Right. What I know at one point you told me that you got into some trouble as a kid and then they sent you over to Ireland.
Well, My dad, yeah, and I got in trouble in Ireland too.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up too.
My dad didn't think I was going to. I graduated 8th grade, and my dad said, "You'll never make it to high school." So he sent me to Ireland to work on farms because he just kind of figured. And he figured if he got me, and I was summer 15, 16, when I was 15 to 16. And he figured that if I went and worked on a farm, it would change me or slow me down and getting in trouble. And that's all I did was work on farms over in Ireland. I had a blast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I just wanted to bring it up because I'm like, I know that you told me the story before, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I don't know anybody that ever got, sent to Ireland and then wound up going to jail while you're.
I got locked up by a relative. Oh, that was funny as stuff. But yeah, just doing
Crazy shit.
just doing drunken stuff. It wasn't I was a criminal. I was a drunk on 2 wheels, and that was both my legs. And
Yeah.
and wherever I went, and I talked my cousins into. There was a dance, and we had money to get in the dance. But if we snuck into the dance, we would have more money to drink.
Right.
And so we snuck into the dance, and I got caught. And the guardie ended up taking me to where I was living because I was an American citizen, and to find out that the guard was related to me, and where I was living, the woman of the house scolded him all the way down the road.
So when you came back to the States, you came back to Philly. How long was it before you decided to kind of turn your life around a little bit and get into the program?
Well, that was like 15 to 20 years later, and a whole bunch of shenanigans that went on there. When I got back, I was just a wreck on 2 wheels, and the 2 wheels I mean are my 2 feet. And every time I get in trouble, I'd hitchhike to Florida or hitchhike to California and stuff like that, and just to get away from and this and that. But it was always wreckage. It was always wreckage. It was always leaving something, and I just went on like that, and to jump in there, and I was getting older, and I was getting more charges. And I would stay. What I mean more charges was I was getting more charges, but I was staying in jail a little bit longer every time.
Right.
And I didn't like that part. So I was trying to figure it out. I had good people in my life. But every time I would just always ended up in jackpots. It was always drinking and drugging, all the time. Not every time, but all the time. And on January 7th, 1988 was the last time I got arrested. You know what I mean? It was just another time without getting into all the stories and stuff like that. And I was arrested again. It wasn't the first time, wasn't the last time. It was just another time. And I had no plans on quitting drinking because drinking and drugging was my life. You know what I mean? And I was going to, protect the party or protect the drinking
Right.
till my death. And but everybody around me, even the Philadelphia court system, seen that I was just a train wreck. And what happened was I sat in jail for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, or something like that. And I got court ordered. My sister got me into drug court. And I have no idea what a drug court was. I didn't know. I was I was just miscommunicating and stuff like that. It wasn't that I wasn't stealing from people. I was just a drunken mess. And I ended up in drug court. And I tell this story all the time when I speak is I got drafted. Most people get drafted in the NFL, NBA, or something like that. I got drafted into a rehab, first round draft pick. You know what I mean? And funny on them, they thought I had insurance, and by the time I got there, I didn't have insurance. But anyway, I ended up in Fairmount Institute. I got there. I didn't want to be there. When it was time to leave, I didn't want to leave. I still thought I was going to party, but all that time being away from the alcohol and the drugs and seeing my mess is when I got to see my mess. And the bottom line is I was 30 years old and all my cards were zero. You know what I mean? Everything I did, I had a child I had never done nothing with. I had a marriage that was broken. I had another child. And I was just a mess. I had good jobs and I had to leave them all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just a drunk, and everybody always, you're a hell of a nice guy, except for when you're drinking. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that was definitely how I was when I was going through it. Is, you know, everybody always thought I was a pretty decent dude, and then I was a drunk, and then I was an asshole. But you know, I quit drinking for like a little short spell. At some point when you know, I think I was around. It was my early 20s. I quit drinking for like, I don't know. It was probably a couple years. I don't remember the exact amount of time, but I wasn't sober. You know what I'm saying? I was still smoking weed and, you know, doing other stuff or whatever. But you know, when I got back into drinking it, I wasn't an asshole no more. I was the, hey, I love you, man. That dude who's just as equally annoying as the asshole that wants to start a fight all the time. But yeah, no, I hear you, man. So you wound up, that was it. That was your I know.
Yes.
Yeah, and then and so that was at Fairmount, you said?
Yeah, it was at Fairmount Institute.
Okay,
There's a couple
cool.
of things I'd like to get back in there. In all my running, I'm responsible for my brother's dying, and I never, you know what I mean, and that it made me an angry junk. And then there was another, and I'm just throwing things in there like it was really traumatic in my life, and the way I'm throwing it out there.
Right.
I ain't taking anything less on that. And that never changed my drinking. And then there was a marriage, and then in the marriage, I thought that if I stop shooting drugs, I'm a good guy.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is I drank every day and I wasn't any better. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I thought that there was something that I was bringing to the marriage. It was like a golden jackpot, and it was nothing. You know what I mean? So I ended up in the rehab, and I didn't drink. But the craziest thing there, I had a motorcycle. I had bought a brand new 1984 Sportster XLS, the Roadster, and I had that, and so when I got into rehab, I had the leather jacket, the long hair, and I'm like, I'm going to ride and this and that,
Yeah.
and all the counselors said, no, cut
Cool.
your hair, get rid of the jackets, and you cannot be sober and live in that lifestyle. You know what I mean?
I was just gonna ask you, was that was like a stigma thing? They were just like, you know what, dude, you can't be living like that. You're gonna be
Right. It
Wow.
was, yeah, it was, and they were pretty strong on it, you know. No bike, no, yeah. But the truth of the matter is, the bike was broke. You know what I mean? I wasn't riding it every day. The bike was broke. But they wanted me to move away from that. They wanted me to be, I was told for me to be sober, I had to be somebody else than who I was.
Well, it's that whole people, places, and things. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
guess they're figuring that's what you were doing before you got in there. That's what you needed to. Yeah.
True
I got
that.
it. Yeah.
True that.
I get it. I get it. I mean, it's just weird, like the stigma thing sometimes, though. Even now, you know, me working in corporate America and stuff like that, I got to wear long sleeve shirts to work because I'm sleeved up.
Right.
You know what I mean? But here I am, clean and sober, probably the most reliable person that I've ever been in my entire life.
Ain't that amazing?
But I got tattoos, so, you know, hey, man.
Ain't that amazing?
Yeah. So, you know, look, I don't know if you want to get into it or not, but you brought up the thing about your brother, and I just need people to know it's not like you murdered him or anything like that. And, you know, if you want to tell the story, that's fine. If not, I understand too, because I know that's a touchy subject with you, but I just want people to understand that it's not like he murdered him or anything like that. So, you know.
I was living out of the house, and back in February '78, and I came home for a couple days, and wanted to drink, and all my friends I couldn't. So my little brother's friend came by, and I said, "Come on, I'll go buy a case of beer." And my brother didn't want to go out that night. I said, "Come on, Charlie, come on." And we went out, and we were drinking it up, and the end result, there was a couple hit and runs, there was this and that. The end result was my brother was dead.
Yeah.
And you know, my part of it is my part. And
Right.
you know, and it was hard. It was so unbelievable for that to happen. I was 4 years older than my brother, and you know, he looked up to me, and that's what happened. You know, the craziest thing about all that was at the funeral when when everything was going down, if you would have offered me a joint, a beer, or anything, I would have smashed your head with a baseball bat. You know what I mean? And 5 days later, 6 days later, they had a memorial. I hung on the corner at that time, and they had a memorial keg for my brother. And somebody handed me a beer. And you know, there's some magic about alcohol, and I'm going to tell you what that magic was. I forgot that alcohol had anything to do with the situation. I didn't forget that my brother was dead. I forgot that alcohol had anything to do with it, and it just, my whole drinking was, I was a different kind of a drunk from that day until the last day I drank.
Right, right. Well, you know, and I appreciate you sharing that story with us. I know that's not real easy for you to talk about, and I've heard you talk about it. And you know, when you speak. You know,
Spoken word.
Spoken. But nah, man. So you know, I appreciate you bringing that up, and you know, so let's get into the sobriety part of it because, you know, I know you're probably one of the dudes that I look up to as far as this whole program thing because you're consistent. You know, you're always going to meetings. You go to more meetings than anybody I know. When the pandemic hit. When there wasn't meetings because they closed them down, you and Wendy put together the whole Zoom thing, which I talked about on Carp's podcast. I know a lot of people didn't like those Zoom meetings, but you know, to me, it actually it helped me a lot. You know, I mean, you miss a lot of the camaraderie and stuff like that, but so even with that, you were still pushing for meetings and stuff like that. So, you know, I know that you do hit a lot of meetings, and then you also did. I don't know if you are now that we're back and running after the pandemic, but you also did commitments at the prison.
Yes, still do.
Yeah. So I mean, this guy's doing it all. You know, they talk about you know, being consistent and working the program and doing what you got to do. Here's the perfect example. I mean, this guy is the guy, one of the guys that I look up to as far as that goes, and that's why another reason why you're here. You know, it's to me, there's the right way to do it, and then there's the wrong way to do it. But really, there is no right and wrong in this. It's kind of like, you know, you find your groove and you kind of do it. Nobody runs the perfect program, but you know, if you're doing it the right way, obviously.
You hit the nail on the head when you said you find your own groove, find your own way of getting, you know. I got clean and sober, and I didn't think AA would be the thing for me. I wanted to go to NA, but where I was, I kind of got forced into it, and you know, I didn't think that it would actually work and stuff like that. But right. I had to go to meetings. And, you know, little rewards just came up, you know, and when, you know, when you see my dad came and picked me up one time, and, you know, to see it, you know, when he looked at my arms, you could see it hurt him. And then another time you see him and he's joy in his face, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
The same thing, I was married. You know, trying to mend that tree, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it was like, no, never. And then you're getting sober and things started coming about. And then, you know, you're thinking about, you know, drinking and drugging and this and that. And it's starting to subside, or you're finding ways to deal with it. You know, everything, you just find your own way, you know? And the constant was I was going to meetings.
Right.
You know, I was in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, the house next door. And I had to go to 5 meetings a week. I had to sign in, sign out, you know, the whole bit, and find your way. Did I do everything perfect? No, I did the best that I could as I was doing. You know, early on there was things I was kind of living dirty. I was still a street kid, and I was living dirty, but I was paying the consequences for living dirty. And the longer you're sober, you realize the consequences when they come up. By right. talking to your sponsor and stuff like that, you start to realize, and this is my truth, and then I started to change. In Phoenixville, they were really big in service, and I got thrown. I did not want to go in service, you know, and you know, the truth of the matter is, I want to do as least as possible, and get the most results. You know, if I can stay sober for 6 months or so, or something like that, get a couple dollars, get a welfare card, my teeth were rotted out from meth. to get them fixed. You know what I mean? In the welfare card, I'd be good to go. You know,
Yeah.
what happened was somewhere along the line, sobriety came around, and being in this group, you know, and making regular attendance meetings. I am. You would probably think if this next thing we say, you'd probably say I'm a liar. But the truth of the matter is, I'm introverted. I do not reach out. Naturally, I don't. I'd rather not talk to anybody. You know, and I know it's not me today, but
Yeah.
naturally, I stood on the corner for a lot of years, and you didn't know I was there until I started drinking. You know what I mean? A lot of years in early AA, I'd go to a lot of meetings, and nobody knew my name. That's how I got the name Patches. You know, and I'll jump into that later. It was because I didn't talk to nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's me. So when I started going around all these people, starting to know, you know, it was starting to connect, and things were starting to happen in recovery, you know, and not understanding. But the truth of the matter is, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that I will always drink again. I will always drug again. You know what I mean? I will get the right bag of PCP. I love PCP. You know what I mean? I'll get the right. You know,
Yeah.
and that never happened because I kept on going to meetings. There was a time where I really thought that I was never going to drink again. I was never going to drug again. And it was great. When you don't have no money, it's really great. I got a little job, and I tell this story all the time. I got this little job in a gas station, and this guy I worked for, he paid me a little bit of money, but he talked a lot of recovery. You know, I was getting paid in recovery. Rah, 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 rah. You know, the book says that. Rah, 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 rah. God died. Rah, 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 rah. And, you know, and I'm getting resentments with this guy because he ain't giving me, you know, I want cash.
Right, dude. I gotta
So
pay bills, man.
I finally get my paycheck and my pay, and the first time, and I'm all these good things, and I talked about it in AA meetings. I talked about it. What I'm going to do with this money, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to go get a brand new pair of Chuck Taylors, and back then Walkman. I wanted a Walkman.
Yeah.
I wanted to turn the world out and listen to my Walkman, walk on my Chuck Taylors, and maybe get a cake or something like that. And you know, the truth of the matter is that money hits my hand, and all I wanted was, I swear to God, I never did crack cocaine. It was in my mind. I knew exactly where to get crack cocaine, and that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming thought. And the truth of the matter is, I was scared. I had tears coming down my eyes. I was going to go get the crack or go to the state store in Phoenixville. I knew where both they were, and what I did was, you know, like these people in Alcoholics Anonymous and the rehabs, they're crazy. And what they do is they keep on chanting these damn prayers.
Yeah.
Somehow I remembered one of them, and you know, you hear the Serenity Prayer over and over again, and that's all I did that day. Was I said the Serenity Prayer over and over and over. That was the first time that I ever wanted to use. Like, I would have killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was robbing a house. I was doing something. If I ever got to that point, and that was the first time I ever wanted to use, and I did not use. And I said, you know, I don't. And I say this all the time in my story. I don't know where I don't know where I ended up. I just know where I didn't end up.
Right.
I don't know if I ended up in the Phoenixville clubhouse or the house next door, the halfway house I was living in. And, you know, and there's been a lot of miracles like that, you know, and these little steps. So you find your own way
Right.
as you're going, you know, and as long as you don't pick up, you find your way. And you find, you know, I know we belong to the Messengers Motorcycle Club, but you find your message.
Right.
You know, along the way, if there's a message, there's a person, there's something. And in Phoenixville, there was a couple guys who would hang out front and this and that. And then when I would get like that, they would throw my war stories back at me.
Right.
And you know, for me, my war stories back at me were my dirt back at me was it was a thing. But the truth of the matter is, I always thought that I would still drink again because you don't understand. You know, my dad looked like Buddy Ryan. He did.
He did.
My last name's McFadden. You know what I mean? You know, and Paul McFadden was a kicker in the Eagle season, and you know, and and like St. Patrick's Day was like close by or something. You know, whatever whatever the squirrel cage is spinning in my head, I'm believing. And anyway, I didn't do any of that, and how that worked was one thing. It happened in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. I would go to meetings, and I never had HBO, and I ain't going to go through the whole damn story. But I never really watched HBO unless I went over in Jersey or any place other than where I lived. And I watched like MTV all night or movies all night and stuff like that. And I'd go to the meetings, and I'd fall asleep on the sofa, and nobody would ever bug me. And one time, they had elections, and they voted me into intergroup, and I got into service. And I didn't want to get into service. And the guy who turned out to be my sponsor, you know, he took me down to Philadelphia Intergroup. It was at the Fraternal Order Police Union Hall. There was pictures of all cops in there, and that's like not the place where I want to be.
Right.
I don't want to see pictures of all cops around me. You know what I mean? And yeah, and stuff like that. And I got down there, and he took me up to a prison table, and his name's John McFadden. Sign him up. Graded for prison. Oh, no. I don't want, no. His name's John McFadden. I'll take him. You know, and the other thing I had to do there was just as important was I had to get commitments for other members of my group. Get them the commitment, get their phone number, call them back up, let them know they got the commitment, let them know before, make sure there was no problems. And, you know, what it was I was getting into service.
Right.
You know, I was getting out of myself and talking to people.
Voluntold.
Yeah, voluntold. They
But
say
you
that,
did
and you know, and it helped me out a lot. You know, and then by being down there, I got down to intergroup, and they made me a greeter. And when I was a greeter at the intergroup for all the groups in Philadelphia area, the 5 counties, anywhere I went, people would get to know me, and that's when I started, you know, coming out of my shell. Back to the prison thing, and this is. You know, I always thought that I would drink again, and I always say that. I always did think I was going to drink again. I was just going to get it. I stopped thinking that I was going to drink again once I started doing commitments. I went to graded for prison. I went down. I was never in graded for prison. I've been House of Correction, detention center, and House of Correction. You know what I mean? I did a stop in Mexico and a stop in Ireland, but that you know, like you know, they're where I know. I went into graded for prison. It was a long hallway, and down the end of the hall to the right, there was a chapel. And I got in there. I don't know what I said, but what I heard was me.
Yeah.
I heard other alcoholics, drug addicts there for different reasons, and I could relate to all of them. You know, and from that point on, things started to go, and it was service.
Right.
And I chased that. I chased that. Like I chased drugs and stuff like that. I would take a lot of commitments, and it's 35 years later, 34 years of doing commitments.
Right.
You know, and
That's
it's
awesome.
It's part of my life.
You know, it's funny that you're talking about when you first got sober, whatever you thought you were going to drink again. I mean, I think that's typical for all of us. You know, at some point at the beginning, anyway, until you get to that point where you're like, okay, man. Me going back to that is not going to make anything better. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I think you just got to get to that point, and I think that's where some people fail, right? Is that they just never do enough to get to that point of going, okay, man, I realize now that me going and getting fucked up right now, it's going to make things 10,000 times worse than what it is right now. You think it's bad now, wait till you go and get bombed.
Right.
And then you wake up the next day and go, oh, man. You know, because I guarantee you go get bombed and you pass out, you're going to wake up the next day and you're going to, you thought you had problems before, now you probably got about 4 or 5 other ones on top of that. And hopefully you're not in jail.
Yeah. Well, I always ended up in jail. And the problem is when I drink, I think I could drive.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother issue.
You know what, man? I look back at that now and I realize how selfish and self-centered I was when I was drinking. And I thank God that I didn't kill anybody or myself because, you know, I had the same problem where I thought, you know, man, I'm good. Or here, how about this one? I had this thing in my head, especially at the end, that I could get drunk, drink myself sober, and then get drunk again.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work that way. That's why at the end for me, I mean, when I quit drinking because I was blacking out. But, you know, I'd literally wake up the next day and go, All right, I made it home. Didn't even know it.
I had blackouts my whole life.
Yeah, you know what? I don't I didn't start out that way, but man, towards the end, though, dude, it was bad. Like I was blacking out all the time, every time. You know, I was that binge drinker. Like, I so I think why I thought at the beginning I didn't have a problem was because I wasn't the guy that drank every day. I was at one point in my career, but at the end I wasn't. Because you know, at the end I had actually started to get like good jobs and stuff like that, so I was kind of holding off till Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You know what I mean? And then sometimes it would stretch out to other days or whatever. But when I drank, it was like the floodgates open, nonstop. And you know, I went to my first AA meeting, going, I don't know, man. You know, I got aunts and uncles that were in AA, so I knew about the program. But I was like, yeah, man, you know, I don't drink every day. I don't know if I need to be here or not. And you're talking about miracles. The lady that was speaking at that meeting was talking about how she was a binge drinker. Didn't drink through the week, but when she drank on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, she would blackout drink. And I went, well, shit.
Yep.
All right, I guess I do need to be here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's just crazy how stuff like that. And I'm sure both of us could sit here and talk about hundreds of different things where it's like this, the miracle of this, that, the other. And it's just, when I see newcomers come in, I guess I hope that they reach that point where they can get to the, hey man, I can live without doing that. You know, whatever triggers you down the road, because we know people that have been sober years and then they go back out or whatever. So, and nobody can really understand that, I guess. I was always told that you drank 3 days before you actually drank that. Like you were thinking, you had things in your head that were.
It was definitely before.
Right.
That's
You
what
know what
I've
I
been
mean?
told too.
You didn't just walk in the bar and go, okay, let's do this. There was something in your head that was pushing you towards that, and you know, it is what it is. But let's get back to you. You know, so you got
5 years.
35 years. Yeah, man. I think I was there for your 30th, and I remember going, holy shit, dude, 30 years. You know, like just when I'm hanging around with you guys that have these, to me, I'm going to say crazy numbers, but, you know, it's just, it blows my mind. You know, I've been sober for 8. And, you know, to even think about that, like, you know, double digit, you know, 30 years, holy shit, it just blows my mind. But, you know, there's something about that, though, is most of you guys that have those amount of years, and you look at how much the program was like a big part of their life. That's why. You know, with me at the beginning, dude, I skated by. I'm not going to lie. I think like the first year, 2 years maybe. It wasn't until I went to Arizona that I wound up having this like epiphany. And, you know, I wound up getting a sponsor that was actually from Philly. You know what I mean? Happened to be at a meeting, never been to the meeting ever before. I was wigging out. This guy was talking about how he was looking to sponsor some people and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, come on, man. You know, you don't get any more light bulb moments than that. That's huge, dude. So, now I know, let's get into the club part, because it also intertwines with your sobriety part. So this was all at the beginning with the Stones, right? And the
Stepping Stones.
Stepping Stones in
Yes.
Philly. Yeah. All right. So you want to get into
You know,
that?
I was sober and I was doing all them commitments, and that guy out there became my sponsor, John W. And when I was in the rehab, they told me to get rid of the bikes and cut the hair and this and that. And I was going, at that time, I was going to school for computers. I had short hair. You know, I was trimmed pretty much back. It was, you know, it was kind of different looking. What I was just following the protocol. And I said to him one day, I said, you know, I find myself every time a motorcycle comes up and there was a guy that was in the club and then out of the club. Anyway, he would come up with his bike, and I would always look. His bike was kind of like my Sportster, but what he did to it was like, oh man, he did this. He had this done. And I was always going back over it. And I just happened to say to John one day, I said, man, I wish I could ride. He goes, ride? I go, no, they told me I can't. He goes, I never told you that. Right. He said, as long as you don't drink, you know what I mean? And you could be, and I'll tell you what, within a couple of weeks, I owned a motorcycle. Yeah. I bought a a 1969 500 Triumph. You know what I mean? Kickstart only, and I rode it everywhere. And I rode here and I rode there, and I rode to a lot of meetings and this and that, and it was cool. Just being kind of new sober and riding a motorcycle is cool. Yeah. Going and going to Philadelphia from Phoenixville, going through the park, finding all the back roads, going to a meeting, talking, hanging out with people, was what I was born for. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I always stood on a corner and hung out, and now I get to go to AA meetings and hang out. Right. You know what I mean? Have a cheap way of transportation. I get to be around God. I get God moments, and it was all good. Somebody told me that there was a clean and sober motorcycle club, and it took me months to find these people. I'm not going to say who they are. They're done now, but I found them. Right. And they meted at Creekside Manor Apartments, and it was Mondays, Wednesdays, and Sunday morning. And Sunday morning was a ride morning. You know what I mean? So I made contact with these people, and I'm going to hook up, and they lost the meeting. Yeah. And so when they lost the meeting, they ended up somewhere else, right around the corner, up here in Foxwood Manor Apartments. Okay. Is where they met. And so I get up there, and I'm hanging out with these guys, and as I said, I really was an introvert. I really didn't speak to anybody or this and that. So I was going to a meeting. I would talk to people after the meeting, but I really never said nothing in the meeting. And I had my black leather jacket, and my Sportster was the first. When I bought the Sportster, was the first year of hog. So they mailed me this patch. So I had it dental flossed on the sleeve, right? And so we had the meeting, and then nobody even knew my name. They said the guy with the patch, and that's how I got the name Patches.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
Yeah, from a friend of mine, and right. So they and that's what they started calling me and this and that. But that they were kind of fading out, and so there was another group meeting down the Stepping Stones. So I was going to meet. I went to the meetings at Fox with those guys for long times. And it was just a regular meeting. And that meeting was a cool meeting. You would go there like on a Wednesday night or a Monday night, and you bring your laundry with you. The laundromat was right next to the meeting room. You throw your wash in, and at break time, you throw it in the dryer. And at the end of the meeting, you just throw it all in a bag. You didn't have to fold it, you know what I mean, and take it home, it was a good meeting. It was a good meeting for a lot of years that I went there. And that kind of folded to it, and for whatever reasons. But what I got from there and that group of men was they would go around the room, and there'd maybe two or three of us, and they go, well, it's your turn to share, John or Patches or whatever they were calling me at the moment, and I'd say, I would say or this or that, and whatever chaos was going on in my life, I splurted out in a second, and I'm fine. Right. And then one day this guy goes, you got 45 more minutes. We all shared. You need to, and what they do is they start making me talk a little bit longer. You know what I mean? So and that kind of got me out of myself. The other motorcycle part was there was another group of guys a sober club that's still around now. They were meeting down the Stepping Stones. Okay. And I got down there with those guys, but by the time I got down there, they lost their charter or something like that. I don't know what the politics of all that was. But the members are still meeting there, right? But they didn't have their cuts anymore, and that's whatever for whatever reason, it's not my business. Right. So for a couple of years went by, And a couple of years went by, and then we're hanging down the Stones. And down the Stones was really cool back then. There'd be 60, 70 motorcycles in front of the meeting before the meeting, and we would hang out. We would, we'd go in the meeting, and go for rides in the middle of the night. Me and a couple people, we would go for these midnight rides. At 2 o'clock in the morning, we'd get on our motorcycles and ride down East and West River Drive, ride up after the drunks left the bars, we would go for these rides, and it was all good. It was all fun. It was just fun being sober, and there were shenanigans we did, and there might be women listening, and so I ain't gonna get into all the shenanigans.
Yeah.
But we got into some fun shenanigans that I talk about. But it was fun. It was clean and sober fun, and I was having fun. I was out of myself. It wasn't, it wasn't living dirty. We were having fun on motorcycles, going to meetings, and we go here and we go there, and I'd always end up going back to Phoenixville or coming back. I don't know. Anyway, so at some point, I made a decision that the guys up at Foxwood Manor, that I was just going to, there were just a couple of them left, and I made a decision that I was going to join them.
Okay.
I was going to go up, and I was going to start go up there. And what happened was, a friend of mine said, yo, a bunch of us down in Stones, we're going to start something. Why don't you come? I'm like, nah, I'm going to go here. And at the last minute, I went to that meeting, and there were 60 guys in the room. And there was a need. There were 60 guys in the room, and they all wanted to start a clean and sober motorcycle club. We didn't know the name. We didn't know nothing.
Keep cooking that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how good I am at all this, but anyway, there was a need for it.
There were 60 dudes in that meeting.
There was, and it grew. It grew. It was 20 the first time, and 60 the second. It was we got in basements and filled the basements up with just all.
And those were all dudes that wanted to join a club.
Join a club.
Wow.
And it was cool, and it wasn't cool. There was a lot of headaches. Different people. Some people have passed, and this and that. But there was a lot of talk on leather jackets, not leather jackets, contacting the predominant clubs, and stuff like that. There was all kinds of conversations all over, and to me, it was just a big headache. But I was still in. And so at one point we had, I don't know, I might have had like 6 months of meetings. They came up with a name. Mm-hmm. The name fit the AA clubhouse that we were at. I'll tell you the name of the clubhouse. The clubhouse was the Stepping Stones. I ain't gonna tell you what the name was, but it fitted that, and we were going to start with that. And I was there were issues, but I'm still in. We'll see how this goes. And and I had the bike they didn't like.
The Triumph?
I had the 500 Triumph that if you rode behind me, you got your skin was taken care of.
Spitting that much oil?
you got coated in oil.
I bet you wish you still had that bike though.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But anyway, so they got together, and one of the meetings, it almost, and a lot of meetings back then would almost get down to being fist fights.
Yeah.
And it was, anyway, it wasn't me, but that's the way it was. And one meeting, preacher, he might get on, and I think it was this meeting, or it was the meeting before this meeting, preacher, whatever he's going to say, he'll say, and that's on him. But it was that meeting or the very next meeting. It got ugly inside. It was like, we're not going to tell these people. We're not going to. We're our own. Nobody. We're going to hide in AA, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It was very uncomfortable to be part of anything like that. And a couple guys got up, and apparently they were talking already. They got up and they said, "We're not part of this." And they were walking out the room, and one of the guys said, "Patches, you're with us."
Okay.
And so I think I was number 11 or 12. So I wasn't the founding.
You know what, man?
Yeah, I know. I'm just joking around. I wasn't part. There was other guys that had put some thought into something, and when they left the room, and what they said was what I believed.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're gonna be uniform. We're going to, clean and sober, uniform, and we're going to talk to the people we need to talk to
Right, right.
to get the permissions, and that's what we did.
Right. I mean, people. There might be people that are listening to this just for the sober NAAA aspect of this, but for those people, there's a lot of politics involved with that people don't know about. So, yeah,
Yeah,
you got to do shit the right way, man.
There was a lot of politics, and the bottom line was you give respect, you get respect.
Right. And it
And
sounded
that's-
to me like those other guys didn't want to do any of the.
Well, the other guys had other issues I'm not going to talk down about them and this
Right.
and that, but it didn't end that well for them, for us. But it wasn't all hunky dory for us neither. It wasn't like 2 weeks we can do everything was up and running.
Yeah.
We had to wait for like a year. For everything to go. And at one point, we even put an ad in Easy Rider magazine. In 93 or 94, we put an ad in Easy Rider magazine saying that a clean and sober motorcycle club maybe, might be, I don't know exactly the wording. You would actually have to find the article.
Right.
That we're starting up in Philadelphia. And we put out a name and a written description of what we were thinking about a patch. And if anybody outside of our area, after we got the okays in our area, we went out nationally through Easy Rider and said, this, that, and the other thing about what we are. And nobody ever got nothing back to us. That's a funny story because there was people starting the same time.
Yeah.
But
Which is
anyway.
crazy to me. I mean, you think about that, but that's also a lot of people. You gotta remember that was pre. Internet days, so it wasn't like that you could just start Google searching,
Right.
you know what I mean? So that's crazy to me, though, that somebody outside of our area in other states would think of the name
The same time.
at the same time, which
Yeah.
is nuts to me, but
Yeah.
they're all good dudes.
They're all good. They're all good. No, I just, it's ironic, but it's good. It's good. It's good. Now we got brothers from other mothers.
Right. So with that, you're a part of the beginning of this, and it's been going since '93. And this thing has grown into what it is now, and I think that because you're one of the original guys, there's this little bit of extra respect for you. And I'm not saying it like compared to anybody else in the club. I'm just talking about in the area. There's a little bit of extra respect for that, and that's cool, man. I mean, to be there at the beginning of something that I hold near and dear to my heart is awesome, and so that's yet another reason. That was, the first reason I wanted to bring you on board was because you got all this time and you do work the program more than anybody else I know, and the other part is you were here at the beginning, man, and that's awesome to me. I think that you turned this into an amazing club, with help of other people too. It wasn't just you, but being there at the beginning, I can't even fathom what it would have been like. You know what I mean? Just because I see what it is now, and Carp talked about this on the last interview. I see you guys as the finished product, not the beginning and all the bullshit, arguing, figuring stuff out, making stuff work, not work, all that. I didn't get to see any of that. I get to see the finished product, which to me is something that I go, okay, man, that's what I'm shooting for. That's what I strive to be. So I strive to be what you are now, but didn't get to see all the bullshit that you had to get through at the beginning.
Right.
And that's, I mean, I get it. I totally get it. Because, as I go through this process of being in this club, I got to figure out my own shit too. But it's still kind of like, hey, man, hey, Patches, what do I do in this situation? Or, you turn to me and say, hey, Buck, this is how I would do stuff. And, just to have that knowledge and the time that you have invested in this club is amazing to me. you know. I don't know. Did you think it would ever grow into what it is at this point?
We were lucky to stay alive. Yeah, you know, the truth of the matter is, there's, you know, some people call it A personalities and stuff like that. You have stuff. There's been, from the beginning, there's been a lot of groups of great people, and then there's been a lot of groups of great tragedies.
Yeah.
And you know, people pass. But then there's other things that'll happen, and there's joys. You know what I mean? And you know, like, you know, what gets me is being in this so long and watching a member's son, daughter, or somebody, or just watch families grow, come together and watch. You know, we had a sink or swim, and that's the Delco thing, and we were down there one year, and we had the band playing, and one of the members, his son, I didn't even realize was taking drum lessons, and they let Nicky get in there and play the drums, and it was
Right.
like, wow,
Yeah.
wow. And then that same, which I'm always a man now, but you know, to watch him go to college, and he went to college in the same town where we're doing a mandatory. You know, we didn't plan it that way, and
Right.
we rode in on and we as a club, we watched this kid grow up. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of families like that, and it's really good. You know, if I was still drinking or drugging or whatever I was doing, and I wasn't in this lifestyle, not so much the motorcycle lifestyle, but if I wasn't in clean and sober lifestyle, I would never see these miracles, and they are miracles, and to be part of it. And the guys in the club have grown, and there's been tragedy, there's been death in the club. You know, we do a Fallen Brothers run for a reason.
Right.
We have fallen brothers. You know what I mean? And and they passed. They were brothers. You know,
Right.
one day I'm hugging them, and one day I'm standing at their thing. But we remember them. And it's not that we're morbid or something like that. And the reason why we do the first one, well, that's a Fallen Brothers run. It was just so we know we're knuckleheads. We get on them motorcycles, we are knuckleheads. We are the biggest knuckleheads in the world. We call it shenanigans and this and that, and you know, some people say this about a riding and say that about a riding. But the truth of the matter is, any one of us could be in the dirt at
Right.
any time, and that's that first run. To me, it brings us back to earth before we get started off. Because years ago, that's what all the bikes had to be up by May 1st. And that first week of May or something like that, everybody did the crazy stuff to their bikes. They wouldn't say nothing all winter.
Yeah.
They're ordering parts and putting them in and doing this and doing that and getting a new paint job. You know what I mean? And then that first week of May or something like that, and we're racing up and down 95. You know what I mean? And we got, you know, it's just and fallen brothers, and to remember our brothers and go to their grave. It touches me, you know. And this year, you know, one of our brothers, his sister was there, and you know, this really touched me too. It was like,
Yeah.
for years we were going. Actually, since he died, we've been going to Cook's grave,
Right.
and she noticed it, and I got to watch. And I'm not like a graveyard guy or nothing like that. Like, we used to ride dirt bikes in graveyards and stuff like that,
Right.
and golf courses. But you know, I watched her mom pass and her father pass. I wasn't there, but I got to see the new stones, and I realized, and last year, somebody reaches out through Facebook, you know, oh my God, Facebook, you
Yeah.
know, it's good, bad, but I'll tell you what, Cook's sister reached out and said that she noticed that we've been coming every year, and she was honored that we were coming, and so she came this year with her daughters.
Yeah, dude, and I was completely, I guess the word I'm going to use is floored.
Yeah,
I just was like, wow,
yeah.
that's awesome.
And we get things like that, you know, and the Fallen Brothers is not only, and there's other members that are not members no more that still come around. Their heart's in it, their body's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think for me though, like at the beginning, you know, being a new member, or even before I was a member, So, hanging around or prospecting or whatever, like seeing that, going, wow, man, this is this is what it's about, and just to have that option to see that, whether I made it in the club or not at that point. But then, to me, I think that's where I love it when we see the new guys come in, and they get to see that for the first time. And we're all standing around in a circle, but maybe you catch a little glimpse of them, and you see them. They're like, you know what I mean? They go, oh, like they got this look in their face, like, holy shit, this is real. Yeah. It is, man. I mean, we could sit there and talk about brotherhood and we love each other, and which we do. So people that are out there that don't know that, we do hug each other and say we love each other all the time. But when you see stuff like that and you go, holy shit, dude. And then you hear, like the story about Shaggy, about you guys actually burying him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's heavy stuff, man. But that's what this life's about too. And that's the part that for me, people that I know from either work or just outside, and they go, why are you doing that? Or what's that all about? And blah, blah, blah. And you could tell them, but they'll never get it. You'll never get what our world's about until you're in it. It's different. You might get a little glimpse here and there, but until you're in it, you never figure it out, dude. And that's the privilege of being a member, but I just, I thank you for being a part of that. And, the other guys aren't here, whether they've passed or just are not a member anymore, whatever. You've carried the torch, man, and you kept this going. And, as a newer member, I appreciate that, and I'm thankful for that you were able to keep it going. It's just, it's amazing to me. It's one of the greatest things that I ever got involved with. And to me, I always like to tell people too, being a part of this club is like it's AA on steroids. You know what I mean? It's that little extra oomph that you get out of being an AA, because to me, man, there are times that I'll just reach out to brothers or whatever, not doing well or whatever, or like, hey man, I just had back surgery, and I had a handful of brothers that were calling me almost every day. Hey man, you doing? We're not, maybe not calling, but texting. Hey man, you need anything? You good? You all right? And it's just an amazing thing. So, as far as your story, sobriety, the club, is there anything that you feel like you didn't get a chance to bring up that you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, the whole time you were talking, there was 1,000 things I could fill in there, and now you asked me, I forgot. that comes in old age. Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. I remember first time I seen you was at her 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
The 20th anniversary, we got the round patch, and I was going right through the middle of my cancer. I was just told, let's talk about the end of life, and I remember choking and stuff like that. But I remember you being there, and I didn't know if you were sober or not, or you were trying to get sober at that. I remember all that.
Yeah.
No matter what's going on, it's about the new, and I only brought up all that. The other stuff was because no matter what's going on, we try to see what's going on.
Right.
You know what I mean? And and I really do care about all my brothers.
Yeah, for sure.
And I care about guys coming in, because the craziest thing is I fell through the cracks my whole life. I don't want another person falling through the cracks with sobriety. Or in the club, and it doesn't have to be with the Messengers Motorcycle Club. It could be with anybody. It could be on a softball league. I really don't care, as long as you get hooked up with other clean and sober people. I couldn't do this myself. You know what I mean? You said it in the beginning. You find our way, and this is the way that I found that works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. This is there's a lot to this,
right?
But the rewards are a lot too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And and it's really good. I got to, I had that Sportster for 10 years, and I went to New Hope a shitload of times. I went to Wildwood once, and I rode all the neighborhood bars, and the bike would stay there. You know what I mean? I even tried joining 2 motorcycle clubs, and both of them, who drank a lot, said I drank too much. You know what I mean? You know, and
Yeah.
I ain't gonna get into the stories of them because they're both good clubs.
Right, right, right.
You know what I mean? But what I got into here was I got a lot more. So I had the Triumph. I had the Triumph Chopper. I ended up with the Norton, and I ended up started doing. I really never started doing big trips until I was with this club and on the Norton. And we would ride to Akron, Ohio. We would ride there, and and everybody jokes around this or that. But I got to go out on myself and do something because it's a big thing to get an old motorcycle roadworthy and go.
Yeah.
And it's a big thing. We just had a mandatory yesterday, and I'm sad to say I wasn't there because of grandkids, which is a reward, but it's not a good thing. To get up in the morning and know when it's raining or cold or sleet or something like that, and you know it's a mandatory and you got to get on your bike and you got to go. You know what I mean? And there's something. Well, that by doing that helped me in so many other ways. You know, me and my brother, who we just on last week. You know, we well, no, it's actually before it was with Kicker. One year I wanted to, I did a COC thing in Orlando, and I took the airplane down, and I got there, and everybody, just like when I first got sober, everybody was on motorcycles except for me, and I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. You know what I mean? So the next year, I said I'm going to try to ride down, and Kicker, who's not with us, it was New Orleans. He said he'd go with me, and we were, and I'm not. I was not built for this kind of stuff. And, I got on that Road King and we went down, and somewhere in the conversation, Kicker said, we could do 1,000 miles in one day. You know, I'm thinking of freaking bailing out of 500 miles.
Yeah.
and a brother said, let's try, and it was like, okay. And I got my first 1,000-mile patch, and we got down to New Orleans, and New Orleans, Oklahoma City, Reno. We went everywhere.
Yeah.
Wherever there was a thing, we went to there, and then one year I was the cancer, and I wanted to go from. We got bored. I think we got bored, and I wanted to go. Well, we wanted to go from the Gulf of Mexico to the Great Lakes. And how in the hell do you pull that off? It was like 1,210 miles from New Orleans to Port Charles or Port something up in somewhere up there. It's on the Great Lake.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we did it. Within 24 hours. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And then the very next year, or the year before, or the next year, and my brain's all messed up. We did all these epic rides.
Right.
We got to ride. I got to piss on the Wildwood Beach, and I got to piss in the Pacific Ocean. You know what I mean?
Wait, you know what though? I think because of the amount of rides that you've done in the past and the amount of miles that you put on, I think I actually said it last week is. Like, it amazes me that how you can always find a meeting. No matter where you're at, you can find an AA meeting, man.
AA or NA, don't make it.
Dude,
that was the goal.
And, so, look, man, I'm bringing that up, right? Because that's why I started this. I started this knowing that I was going to be laid up for a couple weeks. And I figured, you know what, man, it'd be cool to teach myself how to do something different. But when I was trying to kick around ideas on what I wanted to do, I was like, you know what, dude? I thought about that meeting when we were down in New Orleans, and we pulled up at that place, and it was kind of in the ghetto, but it was this nice Victorian house, and those people, they looked at us like they just saw ghosts.
Yeah.
And then, everybody kind of filtered in, and the meeting started, and there was a speaker, I think, if I'm remembering it correctly, and the speaker got done, and this older black gentleman was in the front. He looked like he was in his 70s. Shot his hand up immediately, like soon as you could. And he stood up and he said, I'm just going to call it the elephant in the room. He was like, I never in a million years thought I would see a bunch of bikers in an AA meeting. And to us, we were like, well, that's what we do all the time. But So my thought was, you know what, man, let me start this channel, get interviews of people I know, clubs or not, because I got a couple guys that aren't in clubs that I've already talked to, hey man, let's set this up to do an interview. That ride, right? So my thought was, how many other people are out there right now that don't know that there's clean and sober motorcycle clubs? There's clean and people riders in general. So I thought, well, man, if I could do this and pull this off and enough people see it, you know what I mean? And my thought was, that we know the guys in Texas, we know there's some people in California. Eventually I'd like to interview those guys. It's probably going to have to be via Zoom or whatever, but you start doing this and you start interviewing guys throughout the United States that are in clean and sober clubs, and maybe there's going to be people in their area that go, hey man, I didn't know that there was a clean and sober club in my neighborhood. There you go. So I just thought that was a cool little niche that I'm filling that nobody else is doing. I did the research. There's clean and sober podcasts out there where they're basically just talking about the normal AA, NA stuff, right? It's almost like a meeting, and then they do discussions and break. I didn't want to do that, man. I wanted it to be regular dudes sitting down, shooting the shit, talking about club, no club, AA, NA, whatever. And that's why we're here, man. I just think I thought it was a cool idea. And you started talking about the trips, and I went, that's why, because it had a whole NA thing, or AA meeting in New Orleans. I remember driving into that, and you kept going, yeah, it's up here. And I'm like, you sure? And I remember, was it Motley? He kept looking at me going, man, this neighborhood's bad. And it was. And I remember looking over at one point, and there was hundreds of FEMA trailers left over from, what was that, Katrina?
Katrina, yes.
And just going, holy Christ, this is bad. But we had just rode that day from Mobile, Alabama into New Orleans.
Yes.
So, yeah, at that point I wanted to
stop.
stop.
Those guys were jumping in the Gulf. I would never jump in the Gulf like that. Right on the side of the road. No way.
Yeah.
But finding meetings and stuff like that, that's just one of the things I do. And I thank any group that's listed in a book where we can find a meeting and actually have that meeting open. Is greatly appreciated from any other traveler that it's in recovery, throughout the United States. I greatly appreciate being able to find a meeting and finding it open. I can figure out in the parking lot what door to go in. I can.
You just look for the coffee cups.
Yeah, I got a funny story. We're driving through. Me and Cart were driving through Sparks, Nevada, on our way to Reno. And we're driving down the road. It's around 12 noon. I look over to the right, and I said, Cart, we're in front of a church. There were styrofoam cups. If you see 12 noon styrofoam cups, it's coffee, and it's an AA meeting. We're an NA meeting. Yeah. And we went in. And we found that one on the road. If you're into this or just getting clean or sober or something like that, you know what I mean. Find your way. Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous has done something for me given me more gifts. And I before I could talk about all this, but believe me, there was more gifts. I happened to fall into a motorcycle club, you know what I mean? And that's just a gift in itself. It doesn't have to be a motorcycle club. It doesn't have to be this motorcycle club. All clean and sober motorcycle clubs, if you're trying to get clean and sober, is a good place to start. Is it the only place that, the only place? And there's different motorcycle clubs, if that's what you're into. And if you're not, you're not, and that's fine. Right. But if you could find the joy that I found by riding the meetings and, and your recovery and this and that, and, that's all good. But there's a way, there's a way for recovery and motorcycling or not motorcycling. And as I said, I heard Sparks try to say it. We're from a big world. When I'm drinking and drugging, my world is as big as can be. Mm-hmm. I put the drugs and the alcohol down, my world got smaller. I can't talk to this person, I can't talk to that person. People, places, and things, where everything's getting smaller and smaller. And then somehow I hook up with these other people that are clean and sober in my world. The people that are trying to get clean and sober are smaller than than the people who are just trying to stay. You know what I mean? It gets smaller. And then, you jump on a motorcycle and you're trying to do all this. Our world really gets smaller, and if you can appreciate this, our world really gets smaller. And then to find guys that want to hang in a club or a clean and sober club or something like that, we're a real small part. And as we went down to New Orleans, they couldn't believe it. And that happens. But it's our small world, but to us, it's a big world. By being in that small world opens up the country with all other small world people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're a
Yep.
third world country in this great nation. And it's all good, and I got the benefits of that. And I would hope somebody else, if you're thinking about taking a drink today or a drug today, you know what I mean? Maybe you might try to put it down. Somebody will see you somewhere and they'll talk to you. You know what I mean? Try to find yourself a meeting. And everybody will tell you all the information. Just keep going to meetings, find a sponsor, work the 12 steps. And all that good stuff. I didn't jump into all that. That's all in this package. I just didn't want to. You know what I mean? But there's a way. You know, the gift is, I was with my grandkids this weekend and with my fiance. And, I'm rough around the edges and this and that, but I had said something to my granddaughter. And I'm not going to get into the whole conversation, but there's another family member, and she wouldn't even mention her name.
Oh, wow.
And by me growing up, me growing up the way I did, without getting into my history with my daughter, I don't deserve to be here. I didn't deserve to have her. You know what I mean? I did not deserve. And for me to be with her and say what she said was an absolute gift. Our brother Karp says, alcohol or Narcotics Anonymous has afforded him the ability to rewrite his obituary.
Right.
Well, that's fine. But this life, recovery, trying to live in the light, has given me the opportunity to rewrite my life.
Yeah.
Living. And them gifts come, and I just had them. You know what I mean? And it's really great. I ain't never been this old in my whole life. And
The oldest you've ever been.
Yeah, it is the oldest, and I still ride and I do things and I'm part of this. The recovery and the club keep me young.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's always something to do. There's always, and it's a gift. And, for you doing this is a gift. You're finding your own way through this is correct. You're finding your own way. And I hope everybody can find their own way in whatever they do. And this, you were talking about the Zooms earlier, and you're right. The Zoom meetings, I went to them for 2 years every night. And it wasn't like in a meeting. But I got what I needed out of it.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And in our group, we had a small group. There was like 8 to 10, maybe 12 people in it. And everybody got a chance to share every night.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we'd pick
Unfortunately,
a topic.
sometimes too.
Yeah. But that's, it got me into the meeting where I wasn't, you know what I mean? I'd rather be watching what was going on on the TV station. There's a protest, there's a riot, there's this or that. You know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is, when you try to live in the light, and one alcoholic talking to another, there's something. Meetings are a lot better for me. Service is a big thing, and I'm glad to be able to go. I'm able to go into an institution now, and it's good.
Yeah.
The
cool thing about the Zoom thing, though, was we got to meet people from other countries and stuff.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
And that, you look forward to, even though you weren't in the room giving a hug, blah, 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 you still kind of look forward to seeing certain people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There were the nights, though, where it was smaller, and maybe you're having a day where you're like, man, I just want to listen tonight. And then, the group was so small that you were like, all right, Buck, you ready to talk? God damn it. I just wanted to, and nobody would force you or whatever, but, you're trying to fill time for the hour. 8 people. It's tough sometimes, but, and dude, I appreciated you guys doing that. And that's why, I think I chaired on, Wednesday nights or something for a while, but then, work got a little crazy. And, but, yeah, man, that was, like you said, you got to do what you got to do sometimes, but, look, there's plenty of places, people to talk to reach out to if you're ever in a situation where you want to quit doing whatever you're doing, whether it's AA, NA, there are plenty of people and plenty of places to go, plenty of meetings. There are people out there that do care, that want to help you. Regardless of what you're doing at this point in time, there are people that do want to help you. And I think that's probably one of the best things about, our program is, you see people walk in the door that you're like, wow. But everybody wants to walk up and hug them, man, because we all started there. Everybody in those rooms that looks like they have their shit together at one time look like that new person that's walking in the room. And that's what it's about, man. Getting there, doing what you got to do. And like I said earlier, nobody runs the perfect program, but you got to find your own way. Do what you got to do. So I appreciate you doing this for me, man.
No thing. I thank you, brother.
It was awesome, dude.
Thank you.
It was kind of like, hearing you speak.
Hope you ain't got to cut out too much.
Nah. It's all good. I appreciate it, dude. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you, brother. Love you.
All right. Love you too.
Is that it?